Why the Ottoman Empire survived 600 years, and what finally killed it. This is beyond what schools teach. Imagine ruling over 3 continents at once. Imagine your empire stretching from the gates of Vienna in the west to the Persian Gulf in the east, from the Crimea in the north to the tip of the Arabian Peninsula in the south. Imagine your navy dominating the Mediterranean, your armies feared from Budapest to Baghdad, your treasury overflowing with the wealth of the known world. Now imagine holding all of that together, not for a decade, not for a century, but for over 600 years. That was the Ottoman Empire. It was one of the longest-lasting, most powerful, and most culturally rich empires in human history. And yet, it is gone, completely, erased from the map in less than a generation. So what kept it alive for so long? What systems, what genius, what ruthlessness allowed it to outlast almost every rival it ever faced? And what finally, after 6 centuries, broke it apart? That is exactly what we are going to explore today. Stay with me. This is the full story. To understand why the Ottoman Empire lasted so long, we have to go back to where it began. And it began small, very small. The year is around 1299. In the northwest corner of what is now Turkey, a minor Muslim chieftain named Osman I controls a tiny principality, barely a dot on the map. Around him, the old world is collapsing. The Mongols have shattered the Islamic heartland. The Byzantine Empire, once the greatest power in the region, is rotting from within. The Crusader kingdoms are dying. The old order is gone. Into that vacuum steps Osman, and then his son Orhan, and then a dynasty of warriors, administrators, and visionaries who, generation after generation, make one smart decision after another. They are not just conquerors, they are builders. From the very beginning, the Ottomans understand something that most empires miss. Taking land is easy. Keeping it is the real challenge. So they build systems. They build loyalty. They build a state. Within just a few decades, they have absorbed much of Western Anatolia. By 1354, they cross into Europe. By 1389, they crush the Serbian forces at the Battle of Kosovo and cement their dominance over the Balkans. And then, in 1453, the young Sultan Mehmed II does the unthinkable. He conquers Constantinople. The city that had resisted invaders for over 1,000 years falls in 53 days. The Byzantine Empire, the last heir of ancient Rome, ceases to exist. And the Ottoman Sultan takes a new title, Caesar of Rome. That single conquest reshapes the world, and it tells us everything about how the Ottomans operated. Secret 1. The devshirme system. Most empires rely on their nobility. The Ottomans did something radical. They recruited their most powerful officials, their generals, their ministers, even their grand viziers, from a system called the devshirme. Every few years, Ottoman agents would travel through Christian villages in the Balkans and Anatolia. They would select the strongest, most intelligent boys, take them from their families, convert them to Islam, and train them in the imperial palace. These boys became the Janissaries, the most elite military force in the world at the time. Completely loyal to the Sultan, no noble family ties, no competing interests, just total devotion to the empire. It sounds cruel, and it was. But it also produced a meritocracy unlike anything in the medieval world. The son of a Greek shepherd could rise to become Grand Vizier, the second most powerful man in the empire, purely on the basis of talent.
That system gave the Ottomans an administrative edge that lasted for centuries. Secret 2. Religious tolerance, the millet system. Here is something that surprises most people. The Ottoman Empire was home to Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Armenian Christians, Jews, and dozens of other groups, and for most of its history, they largely coexisted. This was not accidental. It was policy. The Ottomans created a system called the millet system. Each religious community, each millet, was allowed to govern itself by its own laws in matters of religion, marriage, education, and internal community affairs. The Ottoman state collected taxes. The communities kept their identity. When the Spanish Inquisition expelled the Jews from Spain in 1492, the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II reportedly said, "Why would I weaken my empire to strengthen theirs?" He invited the Jews to settle in Ottoman lands. Hundreds of thousands came. This tolerance was pragmatic, not idealistic, but it worked. It kept diverse populations stable, productive, and loyal for generations. Secret 3. Strategic geography. The Ottoman Empire sat at the crossroads of the world, literally.
Every trade route between Europe and Asia passed through Ottoman territory. The Silk Road, the spice trade, the routes connecting the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, to the Red Sea, to the Persian Gulf. The Ottomans taxed all of it. They became enormously wealthy simply by sitting at the center of global commerce. That wealth funded armies, palaces, mosques, universities, hospitals, and the administrative machinery of a vast state. Secret 4. Military innovation. The Ottomans were among the first powers to embrace gunpowder warfare at scale. Mehmed II used massive bronze cannons to blast through the walls of Constantinople, walls that had held for 1,000 years. Their military was not static. It evolved. When Europe developed new tactics, the Ottomans adapted. Their navy dominated the eastern Mediterranean for over a century. Their siege engineering was the finest in the world. For most of its history, the Ottoman military was simply better than its opponents. The 16th century was the Ottoman Golden Age, and at its heart was one man, Suleiman the Magnificent. He ruled for 46 years, from 1520 to 1566. Under his reign, the empire reached its greatest territorial extent. His armies pushed deep into Hungary. His fleets threatened the coasts of Spain and Italy. His eastern campaigns humbled the Persian Safavid Empire. But Suleiman was not just a warrior. He was a lawgiver. The Ottomans called him Suleiman Kanuni, Suleiman the lawgiver, because he codified Ottoman law, reformed the bureaucracy, and created a system of governance so efficient that it ran largely unchanged for another century after his death. Under Suleiman, Constantinople, now called Istanbul, became the most magnificent city in the world. The architect Mimar Sinan built the Süleymaniye Mosque, a masterpiece of Islamic architecture that still stands today. The arts flourished: poetry, calligraphy, miniature painting, music. The Ottoman court was a center of civilization. The empire's population reached perhaps 15 million people. Its annual revenue dwarfed that of any European kingdom. For a brief, brilliant moment, the Ottoman Empire seemed invincible. But empires do not stay at their peak, and the forces that would eventually destroy the Ottomans were already beginning to stir. Crack 1. The problem of succession. When Suleiman died, the empire passed to his son Selim II,
nicknamed Selim the Sot because he preferred wine to war. This was not a coincidence. It was a structural problem. The Ottoman succession system was brutal. When a new sultan took the throne, he typically had all his brothers strangled with a silk cord to eliminate rivals. Later, the system changed. Princes were kept locked in a part of the palace called the kafes, the cage, completely isolated from the outside world. The result? Sultans who had never governed, never commanded armies, never seen the world outside palace walls. Men raised in luxury and intrigue, with no preparation for rule. The quality of Ottoman leadership declined sharply after Suleiman, and in an empire so dependent on strong central authority, weak sultans were catastrophic. Crack 2. Military stagnation. While the Ottoman military stagnated, Europe was transforming. The 17th and 18th centuries brought a revolution in European warfare. New drill techniques, professional armies, faster firing muskets, mobile artillery, military academies. European states were becoming war machines. The Ottomans, meanwhile, were resisting change. The Janissaries, once the empire's greatest asset, had become a conservative political force. They blocked military reforms. They assassinated sultans who tried to modernize. They had transformed from an elite fighting force into a hereditary guild more interested in their privileges than the empire's survival. The gap in military capability between the Ottomans and Europe widened decade by decade. The turning point is usually dated to 1683, the failed siege of Vienna. The Ottoman army, the largest ever assembled, was turned back, then pursued, then crushed at the Battle of Kahlenberg. For the first time in Ottoman history, they were not just stopped, they were driven back, and they kept being driven back. Crack 3. Economic collapse. The discovery of the Americas changed global trade forever. European powers found new sea routes to Asia, bypassing Ottoman territory entirely. The wealth that had once flowed through Ottoman hands began to flow around them. Silver from the New World flooded Europe, causing massive inflation. That inflation spread to the Ottoman Empire, devastating its economy. Meanwhile, the cost of maintaining a vast empire kept rising. Wars were expensive. Bureaucracy was expensive. The palace was enormously expensive. Tax revenues could not keep up. The empire began to borrow, and then to struggle to repay.
Crack 4. Nationalism. Perhaps the most destabilizing force of the 19th century was nationalism. The Ottoman millet system had kept diverse communities stable for centuries, but it had also kept them separate. When European ideas of nationhood began to spread, those separate communities became the seeds of separatist movements. Greece declared independence in 1821. Serbia achieved autonomy, Romania, Bulgaria, Montenegro. One by one, the peoples the Ottomans had ruled for centuries began demanding and winning their own nations. The empire that had once stretched across 3 continents was shrinking fast. By the mid-19th century, European diplomats had a nickname for the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe. It was not wrong. The empire was hemorrhaging territory. Its finances were in crisis. By 1875, it defaulted on its foreign debt, and European creditors took partial control of its treasury. Its military was losing wars it once would have won easily. Its administration was corrupt, inefficient, and unable to reform fast enough. The sultans who tried to modernize, and some tried genuinely hard, ran into walls. Conservative religious authorities resisted change. The military resisted change. The bureaucracy resisted change.
and Western powers who publicly claimed to support Ottoman reform privately worked to accelerate its collapse, carving up spheres of influence and encouraging separatist movements for their own strategic interests. The empire was caught between two impossible futures: modernize and alienate its traditional base, or stay traditional and fall behind irreversibly. It tried to do both, and did neither well. Then came 1908. A group of young, reform-minded military officers called the Young Turks seized power. They forced the Sultan to restore the constitution. They promised modernization, equality, progress. But the world would not give them time to deliver. When the First World War broke out in 1914, the Ottoman leadership, the Young Turk Triumvirate, led by men like Enver Pasha and Talat Pasha, made a fateful decision. They joined Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire against the British, French, and Russians. It was a gamble. They hoped a German victory would allow them to recover lost territories, modernize with German help, and emerge as a strong nation-state. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. The war unleashed horrors inside and outside the empire. In 1915, the Ottoman government ordered the deportation of its Armenian population, a decision that resulted in mass death, a genocide that claimed an estimated 1 to 1.5 million lives, and a crime that stains the Ottoman legacy forever. On the battlefield, the Ottomans fought in multiple theaters simultaneously, against the British in Palestine and Mesopotamia, against the Russians in the Caucasus, against British-backed Arab revolts in the Arabian Peninsula. They were stretched beyond endurance. By 1918, when Germany surrendered and the war ended, the Ottoman Empire was finished. The British and French occupied vast swaths of its territory. The Allies drew up the Treaty of Sèvres, which would have partitioned Anatolia itself, the Turkish heartland, between Greece, Armenia, and the great powers. It seemed the empire would not just shrink, it would cease to exist entirely. But out of the ashes, something new emerged. A general named Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk, father of the Turks, refused to accept the empire's death as Turkey's death. He organized a military resistance, fought back against the Greek invasion of Anatolia, and renegotiated a new peace settlement, the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. The Ottoman Empire was officially abolished that same year. The last sultan, Mehmed VI, went into exile. The 600-year dynasty ended not with a siege, not with a conquest, but with a quiet departure by boat. In its place, the Republic of Turkey, a new state, a different idea. The past deliberately, consciously left behind. The empire was dead, but its legacy, in the borders of the modern Middle East, in the cultures of over 20 countries, in the architecture of Istanbul, in the very idea of how diverse peoples can be governed under a single state, that legacy endures. 600 years, 3 continents, dozens of nations, hundreds of languages and peoples and faiths, held together imperfectly but remarkably by a single dynasty. The Ottoman Empire survived as long as it did because it was flexible, adaptive, tolerant when it needed to be. It fell when it became rigid, when it stopped adapting, when the world changed faster than it could. That is not just Ottoman history. That is the story of every great power that has ever risen and fallen.
If you found this valuable, consider sharing it with someone who loves history. And if you want to go deeper, the story of Suleiman, of the Janissaries, of the Armenian genocide, of Ataturk, there is so much more to explore. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.